Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's this segment of the Incident Management Cafe. Rather special episode. We have a guest here, Caleb with Sematext. Hey, Caleb. Thanks for being on. Really great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. Sematext, could you walk me through, like, before we even jump into the tool in itself, right? What do you do over at Sematext?
So, my job is to be a developer advocate and a content marketer at Sematext. I did front end development, freelancing, and then they decided that my skills would be best suited in the marketing department. So, I do a little bit of both worlds. I have my foot in both worlds, I guess you could say.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. That means that you probably got like a full range of what's going on with the organization.
Oh, yeah.
So, so Sematext, let's jump right into it. What do you guys do? So, what does the tool do from a monitoring perspective? What kind of problems do you solve?
Yeah, sure. I guess it makes sense to start with the history of Sematext a little bit. It really got started as a consulting agency for Elasticsearch, Solar, and OpenSearch. So our team super is in love with search engines. And if you don't know anything about those tools, under the hood, they're all running on Apache Lucene. And that's kind of our company's bread and butter. We love Lucene. We love the indexing power that it has, and just search engines in general, running fast queries. So, in fact, Otis, our CEO, is one of the PMC members of Apache Lucene on the top level project. So he really knows his stuff. He's all onto that. And essentially, through consulting, we built up some in-house tools that would help the consulting teams while they were helping other companies. And then we decided, hey, these tools are actually valuable and would be good for everybody. So those tools essentially became the monitoring, logging, and alerting tools that we now have within IMCafe. We've put a really large focus over the past few years on turning our tool into a complete monitoring solution, a platform where you can have all of your tools in one place.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds great. Especially coming from that consulting background too. You probably have kind of an array of use cases that you've encountered. So the tool is specifically designed and catered to address those.
Oh yeah, DevOps people, they when they use our tool, they find that they can troubleshoot a lot faster, and they can also monitor just day-to-day performance, get alerts that are relevant, and not be um, clumbered by irrelevant notifications.
So Caleb, on that note, from a DevOps perspective, what do you think are the main pain points that Syntax is solving for organizations? And do you think this pain is sort of standard for any DevOps organization?
Yeah, at least in my opinion, I think the main pain point is visibility. Like for example, when you deploy an application like Elasticsearch, it can be a real pain if you don't know what's actually going on. You have hundreds of nodes, clusters, cores, replications, queries going on, and most people are just kind of hoping that it's going well. But it's really important to know, like, is it really performing okay, or is it actually over provisioned in certain areas? And then people start to ask questions like, man, why are my queries going so slow? What can I do to make this actually run faster? I think the lack of visibility is what drives those types of problems. I think those problems can be broken down into like two main areas. One is it can cause within companies a fear to improve. Like the developers code of conduct is, if it works, don't touch it because it's
That's right.
working. Don't breathe on it, don't look at it, don't stare at it too long because then it'll crash and it'll be our problem. So the rule is, if it's working, just leave it alone. But when there's no visibility, there's no confidence to adjust or to improve. And if you don't have visibility, I think that's actually how it should be. Don't touch it. You don't want to touch like 60 petabytes of data if you have no clue what's going on under the hood. But another problem that's brought about not just the fear to improve, but also regarding troubleshooting and debugging. When you get the call at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., the poo hit the fan, and you're just running around from place to place, terminal to terminal, trying to gather all the relevant data, all the relevant logs. That's a great way to waste your time. Like, you should have already had that data being collected somewhere where you can find all of that data and troubleshoot a whole lot faster. So I think Sematext helps solve those pain points that I think every corporation has, where you can improve your performance, like with visibility and confidence, and troubleshoot at the same time. Both of those problems in one go.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so then I guess today, right? I know that you'd mentioned the cloud briefly. So everything's moving to the cloud. Digital transformation's taking over. You really can't have a conversation with respect to product without talking about automation, without talking about visibility. So as all of these kind of tenets start to come into play and come into focus, as far as what defines a mature IT organization, right? Do you think that for Sematext, the level of monitoring the platform offers is really a necessity for a mature organization, or do you think that there becomes a point where the maturity of an organization can't ensue without a tool like this?
I think that a few years ago, monitoring tools were just kind of a nice addition to have. You know, good to have, see your data. But all that was basically geared around a monolithic system where it wasn't distributed and it was all there. There was nothing really to see or do. Nowadays, everything is super distributed, and I personally blame Docker for that. But hey, it's better off for the world, right? Now all IT organizations have a super complex and distributed infrastructure, and it simply can't be monitored manually. Like you need a tool to do it. So yeah, absolutely. I think otherwise you'll just be flying blind in the dark, which is fine for some tech that's like super unimportant and it doesn't really matter if it crashes or not. But if you have something that is of value and you want it to be stateful, then you absolutely need to have a monitoring solution. So I think as a community of DevOps, we are transitioning into needing monitoring solutions, but not only monitoring solutions. I think we need monitoring solutions and tools that provide ease of troubleshooting, that you can troubleshoot more easily, that are more of a benefit than a weighing down, that weigh you down in the queries and finding the solutions to your troubles. Sorry.
So Caleb, what do you see as some of the overarching trends or best practices that are now critical for organizations to begin to adopt?
So Sematext has been around for over 10 years now. So we've seen quite a few trends in the tech world because 10 years in the tech world is a super long time. Nobody
Oh,
has a
yeah.
cell phone from 10 years ago.
Sorry.
One of the most obvious changes that we've seen and that you mentioned earlier was the shift from on-premise monolithic systems to cloud, serverless, or even hybrid environments. And I think over the recent years, there's just been a huge rise in demand for hybrid environments. And I think it's a good thing. I think the more compartmentalized everything is, containerized, it's more modular. Not only do you get a better performance, but you also have you can get logs from individual applications, individual deployments. So you can see the problem and find the solution a lot easier in one sense. But then on the other hand, distributed systems are a pain, like a super pain to try to monitor yourself. It can be super tricky. So yeah, I think that you definitely need a monitoring tool, and I think that's just something that's risen out of this new trend of going towards hybrid systems.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that if we're talking about hybrid systems too, right? It's always a version of that Spider-Man quote that comes to me: with great power comes great
Great.
responsibility. The more powerful your application is, the more proactive you've got to be about monitoring and improvement as a whole. So one of the last things that I wanted to discuss from your experience, right, Caleb, what's the biggest issue that you see today within the DevOps within a DevOps organization that you would classify as probably top priority?
I'm going to say that the biggest problem that affects the DevOps community right now is the knowledge gap. I think as people move to like microservices, cloud, containers, and orchestrators, developments become more and more complex. And that means that a DevOps person needs to know not only like they used to just that one OS and that one system, but now they need to know lots and lots of information. It changes. There's all other layers of abstraction. They need to know all the runtimes used within the organization, and they need to know how apps tend to interact with each other. All of that data, all of that information needs to be known, and there's just a constant growth that needs to take place. And I'm not just talking about like the new hire. When a new hire comes on board, of course, you have to introduce him and get him onboarded with all of your stuff. But even over the years, DevOps just has to change. Like every year, there's always something new. And your company definitely needs that knowledge inside. Like they need that knowledge. And I think there's one of three ways that a company can get that. You either get it from equipping a team member with training, or you get consulting from outside, or you hire a new team member with those required skills. And I'm not here to tell you which one of those three is the right answer to get that information, because it changes on a case by case thing. But I'm just always shocked by how many times the company chooses the absolute wrong solution in those situations. So yeah, my advice is just get that knowledge in one way or another. What makes sense to your company?
Absolutely. No, really appreciate it. I think that definitely got a good background of Sematext as a whole, but then also kind of an insider perspective, right? What's going on with DevOps today? What does an organization need to look at, and where to look for it? So really appreciate you being on, Caleb.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciated it.
And
Thanks,
for our
Caleb.
viewers,
Yeah.
catch you on the next one. Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye bye.